Millions of Canadians will be feeling the pull of the great outdoors this morning. The Victoria Day weekend is when we all try to get outside, heading to cottages, cabins, and camps, making the most of those green spaces in our cities and towns, or throwing that first big get-together of the season. But like pretty much everything else about our lives right now, the COVID-19 crisis means a new normal for the traditional start to summer. And John Northcott leads us off with that. John.
Indeed, Heather. After a long winter, whether it's Victoria Day, National Patriots Day in Quebec, really what it boils down to for so many Canadians, having endured that winter, is the 2-4 weekend, as it has been so euphemistically referred to, a chance to get out, a chance to get together with friends, a chance to go to the cottage or the cabin or the campground. Still, across this country, with this cautious reopening, we are still seeing a patchwork of reopenings and some tentative moves. Still, though, for Canadians, whatever it is, it can't come soon enough. Have a listen.
It's just nice to get out and just be able to enjoy the fresh air again.
It's the people in the condos and the towers that are going stir crazy and they need to get out, and I get that. This park here, are they responsible people going in and out?
Stay away from each other, don't play with people that much.
We've been waiting for months for it to open, so as soon as we heard it was opening, we came.
So some folks there from Canada's West Coast, a situation where British Columbia is seen as perhaps the most successful for many respects in this country when it comes to the size of the province, the number of cases, and the way they have dealt with it. You can have meetings and get-togethers of up to 50 people. You can tentatively look at going to vacation properties. On the other hand, a medical officer of health advises you to take your own supplies rather than going into the local shops to do this. Still, though, as this unfolds, as I say, across the country, the advice, go slow. Have a listen.
This weekend, less travel is incredibly important. Rain or shine, we can get outside and enjoy some of the best of BC right in our own backyards. And top of mind for all of us needs to be fewer faces, smaller groups, shorter times together, and bigger spaces.
So advice from Dr. Bonnie Henry and from public health officials like her. They've all indicated, John, that they're going to be watching the case numbers as the country gradually reopens, because they'll see quickly enough whether or not it's been the wise strategy.
Yeah, absolutely, Heather. There's almost a theme to this in which the medical officers of health are very tentative in their permission to Canadians to go out and do this, and yet at the same time the recognition that Canadians need this, and if it can be done successfully, then a slow reopening, not only, of course, of parks and recreation areas and boat launches and marinas, but also, of course, as we're seeing businesses and down the road, perhaps libraries, and to some limited degree, sporting events. So it's being watched, no question about it, and it might not take long to find out whether or not this is working and Canadians are abiding by these new rules. Let's listen to the Medical Officer of Health of Alberta.
By late next week, we should have a reasonable idea if we're going to see a sudden sharp increase. But again, my hope would be that we keep the numbers relatively flat. But the more that we all together can follow the advice, can keep distant, can wear masks, can wash our hands, the less likely we will see a sudden spike and increase in cases.
We need hardly remind people that this really is uncharted territory. It has been a century since the world has dealt with something like this. The world is different than it was in 1918, 1919, but still it is one where the message has been from the very beginning, despite that patchwork of messages and controls and restrictions across the country, that we are all in this together. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford underlining that point.
The risk of flare-ups is real. We can't take our progress for granted. If we take our time and get it right, then we'll be able to open more businesses, get more people back to work.
So there it is. Wear a mask if you need to, if you feel comfortable in doing that. Keep that distance from people. Don't invite family members over. Don't invite friends over. Go at it slowly. And the implication there from so many of the leaders, both political and medical across this country, is that there will be more holiday weekends across this country, more open than this one, if this one goes right. Heather?
Thank you, John.
Okay.